my name is Marissa. I am a licensed professional counselor who loves all things self-care, and I hope to share my knowledge and lifestyle around mental health. Today, we are going through the 10 signs you should probably go into therapy or some type of counseling. Now, this is not an exclusive list of why you should go to therapy. There are endless reasons why you should go to therapy. And of course, as a counselor, I believe everyone should go. It's just so helpful to have someone in your life to process everything that you experience. And it's really helpful because they're unbiased and they have scientifically proven tools to help you. I mean, I go see a therapist and I'm a therapist, but I created a list of 10 things, 10 reasons why you should probably go see a therapist. I'm gonna stop right now and give a trigger warning for anything that we talk about in today's session. Today's session is gonna be talking about topics like suicide, self-harm, mental health disorders, trauma, substance abuse, addiction, and abusive relationships. If these trigger you or they're just too hard to hear about, please exit my video. I do not want you to feel like you are going to a negative space while you're watching my videos. So please exit, find someone you can talk to, a mental health professional or just someone you can trust. So with all that said, let's get into the 10 signs you should probably go see a therapist. Is not going by order of importance at all, but one of the things I really wanted to say in this video is if you have suicidal ideation, you should probably go see a therapist. Ideation means that you have thoughts about suicide, and that can either be active or passive. So passive suicidal ideation means that you could possibly have like passing thoughts about it or negative intrusive thoughts that in reality, you don't actually want to die, but maybe you just want the pain to end or whatever you're going through to end. Or maybe you just want someone to see you. You could be questioning like, oh, what if this were to happen? Or like I said, you may not actually want to attempt or actually follow through with the active suicide, but you just have thoughts about it. Now, active suicidal ideation, those are thoughts of having the plan or the intent or the means to follow through with a suicide attempt. This means that you are starting to go into the stages of planning it out. You start to recognize what means you have to do it, and you really have the intention to die by suicide. Now, self-harm could be a way of active and passive suicidal ideation, just depending on what the intent is and how you're doing it. So you have suicidal ideation, of course, seeing just any therapist will be helpful, but you may require a higher level of care like an intensive outpatient treatment center. This is especially true if you're in those active stages of suicidal ideation. Now, if you are in this place and you are still watching my video, I want to say this wholeheartedly and very clearly, that your life matters. Take this as a sign you needed to stay here. I know it may not feel this way now, and I know you're probably watching this like, why should I listen to this person who doesn't even know me? Of course, I don't know everything you're going through, and I probably don't understand everything you're going to, but I do know one thing. I care about your life and your presence. I care that you have a life here and that you're a human, and that is enough for me. You are so worth the fight. So if you're in a spot or you know someone who is, please speak up. If not a counselor, please go to someone you trust. Suicide is so preventable. And like I said earlier, you matter and you have so much worth and value to your life. As always, I have resources in my description box if this is you or this is someone that you know, to numbers or emails to get you the help that you need. So the second reason you may need to go see a therapist is if you have unhealed trauma. Shoot, even if you have trauma that is healed, you should go to therapy, but I'm gonna focus on the unhealed for right now. So when I say trauma, it can be so subjective. It varies from person to person, and it's a lot of times about perception of the trauma. Trauma is anything that has negatively changed how you think about yourself, how you think about others, and the world around you. And like I said, sometimes it's hard to identify trauma because it's all about perception. Sometimes clients will come into therapy and they tell me about a trauma they experienced, and I'm thinking, that's big T trauma. And to them, it's a little T trauma, or they don't even see it as trauma at all. And we talk about in therapy, you know, there's big T trauma and there's little T trauma. What we would consider big T trauma is like sexual assault, and if you had a near-death experience, something along those lines. A little T trauma may look more so like your parents divorcing on good terms. And like I said, you may even hear those examples and be like, what? That's still big T trauma, or that's little T trauma. It's all about perception, and that's what we have to take in consideration as we were talking to someone about their trauma. The bottom line is everyone's trauma is valid. You do not have to be a war veteran or someone like that to be diagnosed with PTSD or any other trauma-related disorder. You could have trauma coming from privileged communities, from oppressed communities. You could have gotten all the things you have wanted in life and still have trauma. So as a therapist, everyone has trauma. Everyone has something that has happened to them on some level. So if you have trauma, and especially unresolved or unhealed trauma, a therapist can help unpack that. No, your therapist will not fix you. They will not give you all the answers, but they will help you process and understand and hopefully shift your negative, intrusive thoughts that may have been a result from your trauma, especially by yourself, into more positive ones. So the third reason of why you should consider going to counseling is if you lack in coping skills. This is if you have like just zero idea of what even a coping skill is, or you're coping through more so negative and unhealthy behaviors. So when I say building coping skills, I'm of course talking about the healthy ones. So coping skills are what we use to get through those tough moments. They are like the cornerstone of every mental health disorder that we have. I can't even think of a mental health disorder that I've diagnosed or that I've treated that didn't have some type of coping skills in there. And a lot of times, they aren't just used when we are in the midst of that hard thing. They can be used as a preventative thing. So think about it this way. We don't just brush our teeth when they get nasty, right? Or at least that's what I hope we're not doing. We brush our teeth every day, hopefully. I know I have my moments. We brush our teeth every day so that they don't get nasty. You know, we don't go to the dentist in, a year and they're like, what's been going on? And so that's how we need to think about coping skills at times. We don't just want to wait until we absolutely need them to start using them. We also want to use them as a way of, so we don't get to those points. So a therapist will help identify the best coping skills for you. Of course, journaling may work for some people, but for others, maybe like coloring would work. I know for me, a lot of times it looks so good to journal and the idea of it is so wonderful, and I love colors and I love writing and I love doing all that. But for some reason, I cannot get myself to journal. But what does help is me talking out loud, and a lot of times I'll record myself on my phone, like my voice memos, and use it like a voice journal almost. I talk about self-care a lot on my channel, and they are nearly interchangeable with coping skills. When we do self-care, that's us coping. That is us allowing ourselves to push to that thrival mode we want to be in. We want to be able to thrive. Okay, fourth reason why you should consider going to therapy is if you are experiencing grief. Now, this of course relates back to trauma. Anytime we lose someone, it doesn't even have to be death. It could be by a breakup, or if you feel like you are changing an identity and you lost a part of yourself, that could be a sense of feeling grief. And of course, that can be traumatic. And grieving is one of the hardest things we experience as humans. It's one thing that's guaranteed in this life, but it never gets easier when someone passes away or we lose someone. So grief, like any trauma, honestly, can trigger cycles of mental health disorders like depression or anxiety. So it's so important to have someone to help you through that. Now, one of the toughest parts about seeing a therapist when you're experiencing grief is that they can't do that magic wand and bring that person back as much as you wish you both could. But they will be that person in your corner. They'll help you through all the stages of grief, give you that education about it, and not judge you or shame you for the way you're processing your grief. Okay, next one. What is this, number 5 that we're on? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Okay, so the next one, number 5, is if you are struggling with your identity. So this could be anything from your race, your gender expression, your religion, anything like that. We all know that this is a common transition for teenagers to go through, in puberty especially, but a lot of adults, even until their later years, experience an identity change or possibly a crisis at times. So having struggles with your identity could be because of anything. It could be because of trauma. It could be because you have just been in that role your entire life and you can't find your way out. Maybe you had to grow up at a super young age and you're parentified, or maybe you're just realizing and coming to terms with your sexuality later in life. Our identities are forever changing, and they're allowed to. Of course, unless it causes harm to yourself or others. That's when we don't want to change into that. So find a therapist who will assist you in identifying who you are and possibly process that trauma around it if you have it. It may even be able to give you reflections that you don't even see in yourself. Again, they will not have answers, but they will help you on your journey. So for our number 6 spot, Another reason why you should go to therapy is if you are lacking social support. Now, this is not to say to go to therapy to find a friend and just to be kiki and ha-haing session together and not actually have like goals to work on. It does help build rapport, definitely. I've been there with my clients for sure. But that's not what therapy is about. We do not go to therapy to find a friend in your therapist. If so, you may need to go to therapy to work on boundaries, but we'll get into that later. That's in part 2. But if you don't have someone that you feel supported from, whether you were kicked out of your house, they have passed away, or you just feel isolated, your therapist will help you find resources or connection to social support, or help you identify those barriers into why it's hard for you to find social supports. Therapists typically know or know someone that knows resources for like a therapy, or just groups that have like a niche, like a women's group or a men's group. But even if they don't have that, they could even help you find what your interests are and narrow those down so that you are able to pinpoint exactly where you could connect with people. At the very least, your therapist will find pride in being a support for you, of course with boundaries. And seeing a therapist may remind you that there are people in this world that are worth building a relationship with. Okay, moving on in our list. The 7th one on our list is if your loved one suggests it. Now, don't exit out the video. I know this is hard to hear at times. I know how you girls like to tussle.
And don't fight me, because I know how you girls like to tussle.
You should consider therapy if a loved one often suggests to go. Now, I'm not talking about the situation where a person is gaslighting you into thinking that you're crazy and they're like, you need help, or you're insane, you need to go to counseling. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people who truly love you and they want to see you be better. And they say in a loving tone, hey, therapy may be a good idea. A lot of times we're not able to see outside of ourselves, and we don't notice how we are moving through the world and interacting with other people and the energies that we're giving off and how they're holding that space for us. But the people that are very close to you, they see all sides of you. They see the parts of you that you can't. And if they're a real one, and if they're genuine, and they want to see you thrive, they will suggest you go to counseling, or at least to process some of the things that you often bring up to them. And it's coming from a place of love and not spite. This is especially true if they say it pretty often, or you're known as a friend who always got something going on. You just go off about the same stuff and you are an emotional dumper. Another sign within this sign is that if your friends or whoever the loved one is start setting boundaries because you just continuously emotionally dump on them. And sometimes it's hard to hear from that loved one that they want you to go to counseling because you're like, I need to go to counseling. Therapy is not a bad thing. And they are saying it not to hurt you. And sometimes they are just not able to provide that support that you're looking for. And it's big of them to say that they're not able to provide you that. You may even be doing yourself a disservice if using your friends or whoever to understand what's going on with you. Find that unbiased person. Find the person with those tools to help you. Another reason why you should go to therapy is if you cannot break those bad habits. I put the word bad in quotation marks because bad, of course, is subjective. We all have what we consider bad and good. But obviously any habit that's gonna create more of a negative impact in your life than positive one is considered bad. Now, there has to be so much grace with this one. We all don't have positive, perfect habits. We all have our bad habits. I have my bad habits. I have my guilty pleasures. That's just a part of being human. However, if you are someone who gets stuck in those and you can't get out and you're constantly making excuses for it and you know you need to change, this could be a reason why you go to therapy. But the thing is, you have to want to change. If you go to a therapist and you have this bad habit, you're more likely gonna get to a point eventually where you address changing this habit. And they're gonna challenge you on why you're not able to change it. So this is just gonna create pushback for you and push you away from therapy. It may not be the time to go yet. You may have to get to a place where you know there's a problem and you recognize it does need to change and you are ready for that to change for you to go to therapy. Of course, that's not always the case, but it will really jumpstart your success in changing it if you already acknowledge and you know you want to change it. It may be you don't want to change it yet, but that person hearing it and saying, wait, this isn't helping you, may flip that light in your head that's saying like, oh, maybe I do need to change this. So the 9th thing on our list is if you are struggling with addiction or substance abuse. This could be anything from abusing drugs, to hoarding, to a gambling addiction, to using alcohol to cope. Getting treatment is one of the most important things that you could do for yourself. Going to see a therapist or being group therapy could really help you get through ending the cycle of your addiction. Group therapy especially can be helpful because It lets you know that there's other people going through something similar, and it can really build that sense of connection and community. I do not specialize in substance use disorders, nor have I been in a treatment center that has focused on these mental disorders, but I do know just from my general education about substance use disorders that it is a beast. It is something that could be uncontrollable from a biological standpoint. For that reason alone, it's very hard to even understand why this is happening to you. So a therapist could really help you understand, give you that education, and especially like suicidal ideation, a higher level of care is typically required for someone who's going through a substance use disorder or addiction. So like an intensive inpatient center. Okay, so we got down to our list. The very last one, definitely not least, is if you are in an abusive relationship. This is any type of relationship, a family member, a friend, a romantic partner, anyone. Today, I'm just gonna be talking about the person who is receiving the abuse. Maybe we'll get to the person who is the abuser in part 2 if you guys are interested. So not only is this any type of relationship, but it could be any type of abuse. So it doesn't just have to be physical abuse, it could even be emotional or financial abuse. Now, if you're watching this and you're still in that relationship today and it's active abuse, and you want to seek couples counseling or family therapy, a lot of times therapists won't even allow sessions until that abuse stops. You cannot positively build off of a relationship that has active abuse going on. But if you're in that place and the abuse has stopped, whether that's been way back in the past or it just recently stopped, or the abuse is active and you're going to individual sessions, a therapist can help you process through what is going on in that relationship. They can assist you in help deciding on how to move forward in it. They can provide education on the consequences of an abusive relationship and why it's so important to get out of them. They can help you build back your self-esteem and confidence. Again, if this is you and you're just going to look for answers, someone to tell you what to do, therapy sadly is not going to provide you that. A good therapist will follow what you want because this is your treatment at the end of the day. This is what you want to get out of therapy, but they will still challenge you and educate you on what they may know could scientifically help you thrive, like coping skills, like being in a healthy relationship and understanding what that looks like. The therapist always wants to see you thrive, and they will never shame you. But remember, they are limited to what you want to get out the session. So if you're going and you want to change the relationship, this would be the perfect person to help you get through something like that. So everyone, those are my 10 signs you should go to therapy and really consider it if you want to be a better version of yourself. Like I said earlier, if you would like a part 2 on this, please let me know down in the comments. I really enjoyed making this, and like I said earlier, there are endless reasons of why you can go to therapy, so I could just keep going on and on and on. So if you like this content, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you haven't yet, also follow me on Instagram. I post a lot of things related to my channel on there, but I appreciate you guys taking the time out to watch my video today. I hope that you heard a lot of things in my channel today that kind of push you towards going to therapy. If you're one of those people, I commend you for going. It is such a strength to be able to go, and that lets me know that you're a person who's willing to work on themselves. But again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.